Okay. So we'll probably talk later. We have our first speaker ready for today. Dr. Abdul Salman is going to be speaking to us on spirituality in Islam. Okay. If you're ready, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته to you all. You are welcomed to this presentation. I'm going to present the spirituality in Islam on behalf of Department of Arabic and Islamic Study at Summit University. My name is Abdul Salman. What are we going to discuss on this topic? We are going to look at spirituality, meaning and the concept in Islam, and the criterion of spiritual development in Islam. Thirdly, the concept of Islamic spirituality. So the meaning, spirituality in Islam refer to spirit in Islam, and in Islamic parlance, the word of spirit means a roh, the roh, and also the roh is mentioned on several occasions in the Holy Quran. So anything that relates to spirit, we call it spirituality. So therefore, take this one for instance. Allah says in the Holy Quran, in chapter 17, verse 75, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويسألونك عن الروح قل الروح من أمر ربي وما أوتيتم من العلم إلا قليلا. Allah says, "Oh Muhammad, they will ask you about the soul. Say the soul is it of my affairs, and the mankind have not been given of knowledge except a little." Allah told us in the Holy Quran that whatever we know, whatever we discuss on this soul, we just know a little. So when coming to the meaning in general, we can say spirituality in Islam is the quality or state of being spiritual, or being attached to questions and values concerned with religion. It is also frequently used in a non-religious sense to designate a capacity to understand fundamental moral and existential questions regarding the soul of human being. Because according to some mystics, they believe the soul, which means the spirit, as the opposite, is opposite of the body. They believe when we talk of the soul, which means the spirit, they mean that if the house is the spirit, if the house is spirit, the dweller in that house is ruh, which called the spirit. If the house is the body and the dweller in that house is is ruh, which calls spirit. So the spirituality in Islam, which means ruh, is defined as the presence of relationship with Allah that affects the individual's self-worth and sense of meaning and connectedness with others. That is, whatever we have, the efforts, in another meaning, the effort we have must be free of oneself of worldly attachment and imperfectedness in Islam. So in Islam, the relational quality of spirituality is understood to be a core, to be a core theme that comprises the belief in Allah, belief in His messenger, belief in His angel, belief in His book, and other things like a day of judgment, rituals, and daily living behaviors and knowledge. So the basis of the prophetic model with the essence of spirituality in Islam is the degree of spiritual attainment achieved by any human being by the realization of Tawheed as expressed in the Holy Quran on the head of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So its study is nothing other than tracing the impact of depth of Tawheed upon the life of actions, art, and thought of that segment of human race, which makes up the Islamic people or Ummah. So in Islam, the concept of Tawheed, we can see that those prophets, the book of Torah was given to the prophet Musa. The book of Injil was given to the prophet Isa, while the book of Quran was given to Prophet Muhammad. So all these earthly books brought the same message of the oneness, the unity of Allah. So in Tawheed, in Islam, we have three types of Tawheed: Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, that is maintaining the oneness of Allah, the lordship of Allah. That is, we must unify this term for only Almighty Allah. Whatever we see, whatever we have, we must know that Allah is the taker, Allah is the giver, Allah is the control of all the universe and all of affairs of the heaven and the heart. So we should not worship any other thing except Almighty Allah. That is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, maintaining the oneness of unity of lordship to Almighty Allah. The second one is the Tawheed as-Sifat, what Asma, that is maintaining the oneness of Allah's names and attributes. That is, if we have any problem, we should not call upon anyone except Almighty Allah to say, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, whatever you have. You don't need to call anybody else except Almighty Allah. Why Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, that is maintaining the oneness of the worship to Almighty Allah, that we should not worship any person except Allah. You should be among those who we say, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek for help. You should not seek any other things, any other help, and any ground from anybody else except Almighty Allah. When you have this Tawheed, when you digest this Tawheed in your mind into your mind, you're free, you're secure. Now, the spiritual life is attained by having reverential fear of God and obedience to His will. love of God, to which the Quran refers in verse 5, in chapter 5, verse 54. He loves them, and they love him, and the knowledge of God, which is the ultimate goal of creation. That is, Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us, and we should also love Allah. When you love Allah, you will obey him, you will follow his commands. Whatever Allah order you, you will follow it. That is one of the concept of spirituality in Islam. And colored and conditioned by the knowledge and based on the obedience already practiced and contained in living according to the Sharia law. You know, if we are obedient to Allah, as I said earlier, we will follow, we will put whatever he order us, we will put it in practice, such as prayer, fasting, hajj, giving zakat. All this practice, from the prescribed daily 5 daily prayers to ritual prayers, eating, reading, sleeping, going, riding, whatever we do with ourselves and others, we must put into practice. And when we follow this thing according to the Sharia law and the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we shall succeed in the end. So here we want to talk about the inner realities of spirituality in Islam. There are many, and we cannot be able to identify in series, but its realization and methods can be achieved and described as follows. Number one, have a confusion-free mind, because it is difficult for a confused mind or troubled mind to undergo spiritual experiences. If you are in trouble, you are confused, you cannot be able to know the good, to differentiate between good and bad. So therefore, except when you bring yourself out of that confusion. So the second one, select a guide, because on the part of spirituality, one cannot be one's own guide. This guide is the Quran. The Quran is the only perfected book in Islam that we Muslims must follow. I remember one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "In hadha al-Quran mahadabatullah." This is the Quran. Verily, this Quran is a banquet of Almighty Allah. Khudhu mahadabakum mastata'tum. Take whatever you can. Take whatever you can. And it's stated further that any heart, any soul, any spirit that are free from the word of Allah, that is the Quran, is totally nothing, is totally useless, is totally hopeless. So thirdly, change in lifestyle. This lifestyle for a spiritual traveler may be put briefly in this word, that is, simple living and high thinking. What we mean by simple living is when you limiting yourself the worldly requirements to minimum by avoiding comfort and luxury. We call it a simple life. And when you engage yourself in higher thinking, so you become a recipient of divine definition. So the right inspiration will come to the mind of a believer. and the light of Allah will come to the mind of a believer, and will come to you also. Additionally, in its capacity as the vicegerent Khalifa of God, man is answerable to him for all his activities. It is his duty to use all the powers which he has been given in accordance with divine will. It should utilize to the fullest extent all the faculties and potentialities bestowed upon him, the capability, the possibility, the faculties, or whatever given to you to use for the seeking the Allah's approval, the Allah's pleasure. Wherever you deal with any man, whatever, whoever you deal with, just seek the pleasure of Allah in whatever you have done with other people. In its dealings with other people, it should behave in such a way as to try to please Almighty Allah. There are so many concepts of Islamic spirituality, but most of the most important there are three one which we're choosing for you. We choose these three concepts not only because they are theoretically important, but because they are practically rewarding. The more you do, the more you get the reward from Almighty Allah. First of all, number one, love for the truth is the main distinction between a believer and non-believer. Love requires knowledge and readiness to declare. When you love Allah, Allah will love you. According to the second one, thankfulness. The virtue of thankfulness is very much related to the love of Allah. If the believers are thankful, grateful, they will certainly love Allah because of all the mercies Allah bestow on him. For instance, if you help someone, or if it happens, somebody help you, or you help someone, and that person give you thanks, he appreciate whatever you do to him, you feel happy, you feel excited. Same apply to the whatever the message bestowed upon us by Almighty Allah. That's why in one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad say, "La in lam tashkurullah lam yashkuru, in lam tashkuru nas lam yashkurullah." If you don't give the gratitude to the others people like you, how do you remember? How do you appreciate what Almighty Allah does for you? So if you appreciate Allah, you will people like you will be able to count and appreciate whatever Almighty Allah has done for you. Thirdly, humility. This means to strengthen our understanding of need for Allah and achieve a sense of complete reliance on him. We must rely on Allah on whatever we are doing, on whatever we are saying. We must see that whatever we are doing and whatever we are doing is the same thing. Come together. So who are we without Allah's favor and grace upon us? We are nothing. It is not that Allah has been generous to something independent of himself. We are nothing else than what Allah has created. Allah said in the Holy Quran in verse 39, in chapter 39, verse 17, Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allah wallahu huwal ghaniyyul hamid. Oh mankind, if you are ungrateful to whatever Allah has done for you, Allah has nothing to do with you. Surely Allah is all sufficient and all laudable. So we must be able to feel humble in whatever we see we have in the name of Almighty Allah. And in another verse, Allah said, Inna allazina yastakbiruna an ibadati sayadkhuluna jahannama dahirin. Those who feel arrogant, those who feel they have nothing to do with our worship, with our prayer, with our zakat, with our hajj, with our all these things, They say they will enter the Jahannama, the hellfire, and they will be rendered contemptible. So therefore, as you are a student of a Summit University, we are expect from you to abide by all those we have already taught you, like giving, make yourself closer to Almighty Allah. The Quran, let Quran be your guide every time, everywhere. If you don't put Quran, if you don't allow Quran to be your guide, and you allow other things, you will go unsuccessful. Just like a person, or you downloaded a raw film, you watch a film, and you had a nightmare. You get you are upset in your sleeping. How do you so? And you are now be complaining. You saw this, you saw that. So there are many askar in Islam, which if you go with this askar, you will be safety. You will have a good upbringing in yourself and in others. Finally, we pray to Almighty Allah to continue to be with us in all our endeavors and action here and hereafter.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Ganiyy Salman, from the Department of Arabic here at Summit University of. He has been able to speak with us on the concept of spirituality in Islam, what you need to do and how you need to do it. Don't forget that here at Summit University, we are also a faith-based university, or the University of the Ansari Society of Nigeria, and we also preach faith as part of what we do here at Summit University. Don't forget that part of the 7 skills that we said you've been learning from us here, one of them is Islam and global citizen skill, under which spirituality also comes in. We need to, of course, teach you how to also be spiritually inclined, as much as you are academically inclined. So we also talk about, the Vice Chancellor has also talked about, if you remember when he shared his slide last week, he also talked about spiritual intelligence. So it's not only important to be physically intelligent, you also have to be spiritually intelligent also. So I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Ganiyy Salman.
الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله